Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an awesome episode. One of my favorite authors we're going to be talking to today. I've read over 6,000 books. I got 18 going right now, and his book is probably in my top 10 of all time. That's a lot of books, but his book is amazing. We're going to be talking about some things that might not be as comfortable, but it's going to change your life if you just listen to this and put it into practice. And the one question I love is, are you addicted to your circumstances? And as somebody that's a recovering addict, I love this question because sometimes we're addicted to the problems and not the solutions. So we're going to be talking about my brother Shiraz. My friend, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic, Richard. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. I know you just got back from my hometown of South Carolina. But first, I want to give a big shout out to Angel Tucci. Thank you for setting this up. Without you, we would not be able to hang out together. So I just want to say thank you. So my first question is right off the bat, what is your definition of resiliency? Because after reading your books, I know your life hasn't been all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns and Skittles. So talk to us about resilience and what your definition is.
My definition for resilience is being in that place of knowing that no matter what you're going through in this particular moment, everything's going to work out.
I love it. So, okay, so, you don't exactly have the big Italian last name. So tell us a little bit about where you come from, where did you grow up, and how did you become the force that you are today?
Well, I was originally born in South Africa, in Durban, South Africa. We moved here when I was 3, so not much memory or attachment there. We grew up in Mississauga, just outside Toronto, Canada. It was a fairly good life until I got to 22 years old when I developed severe rheumatoid arthritis in every single joint in my body. So, and I mean like every joint. There were nights where I would sip my dinner through a straw because my jaw was so swollen and painful I couldn't actually chew. So that really took a turn for what was going on in my life, because I was studying to be a molecular geneticist. I come from a family of doctors. I was expecting to be a doctor just like them. And suddenly I'm bedridden. I'm trying to take medication, but that's not helping at all. I tried diets and supplements. That didn't help. And then I just was trying all these different things because the arthritis just completely racked my body, deterioration in the cartilage. And, people may not have gone through this kind of physical trauma, but I had my whole life planned out for me. And have you ever been in that situation where you've got the plan and out of nowhere, bam, you're like, it's gone.
Yep.
And so I was in that place of, what did I do to deserve this? Like, why is this happening to me? And of course, what am I supposed to do now? I went through depression for a while, but I pulled myself out of it and started to get back into work. I got into computers because you could just sit at a desk. It didn't involve that much movement, and started my career there. But I was in pain every single day. Now, as an arthritic, arthritics know this. Most people don't get this. It requires anywhere between 2 to 10 times as much energy to do the same things as other people because you're in such resistance in the joints. So you tire very, very quickly. And I built up a pain tolerance so I could function and people could see. They saw that I was awkward, but they didn't realize the amount of pain I was in. And that was just my life.
But again, we're going to be talking, because I was in the health and fitness industry for over 30 years. And it's amazing how inflammation can just destroy your life. Whether RA, whether it's having other things. So did they find out what the cause was? And because the healthcare system in Canada is different than the United States. How did your health care go?
So healthcare was, I mean, it's just always here. Their doctors were there to help me. They were constantly prescribing medicine, but that wasn't doing the trick. And there was never actually a conversation about what the cause was. It's just, oh, you just have arthritis. And so that was it. That was the whole conversation. They test to see if the Rh factor is in your blood. If it's in your blood, you've got it, and that's just something that happens to people. There was never why.
So obviously, the kind of guy you are, you're a very cerebral guy like I am.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you read everything you could find out about it. You did all the studying, and you took that deep dive into figuring out the why, right?
I did not.
Really?
Yep. It honestly did not occur to me. I just kept trying to figure out what other methods I could use to get out of it. And
okay.
Yep. And this is the thing. I mean, I was much younger then. I mean, started at 22. So 22, you're not in that place of, hey, I've got all this accumulated world wisdom. It's just like, what the hell is happening to me? And why is it happening to me?
Okay. So now I want, because your story resonates a lot with me.
Okay.
I spent 23 years in the military. I got hurt on duty and lost 80% of my vision. That's why I got to wear these stupid glasses today. But I had to realize this is my new reality. It's either I can be the victim or I can be a victor in my new reality.
Yes.
So talk to us about, having how not to be addicted to your circumstances now, and how to change your reality.
So for me, number one was coming to acceptance that I had the arthritis. Because what a lot of people don't get is it's easier to get out of something from a place of acceptance that it's there than to start from, this can't be happening, this is not my life. Like if you're trying to get to, here's the change, and you're starting from, this is not my life, that's a big leap. But if you're like, well, okay, this is my life, now how do I get to here? That's a shorter distance to go. There's less stress. You can move further. So while I accepted the conditions of my life, I was constantly, what else is possible? What can I do to get out of this? And eventually I had a conversation with my dad, and I said, look, we've tried so many things. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that's out there? And he said, well, there's a program out in India called Combined Therapy. And I've heard about them recently. They've had success with multiple illnesses. And that caught my attention, because you usually go to some place for arthritis or for cancer or for diabetes. And he's like, no, they cure everything. And I'm like, if they cure everything, why aren't they world famous? Why is it this, happening all over the place? And he says, I don't know. So I get on a plane, go to India, and I start working with the guy that does the combined therapy. And one of the reasons they weren't world renowned is because the program had actually been shut down, not because it didn't work, but because the three people that created it had gone on to do other things that were having big impacts in the world. And no one got trained to continue the program after they left because they just got so busy. But the one guy just happened to be visiting while I was there. So I'm like, put me through this program. I need to go through this program. And the program was not at all what I expected. Number one, it's because it was India. I expected it to be some sort of energy work like Reiki, and he was just going to heal my body. But all he did was talk to me for about 2 weeks. He asked me all these questions, went through my entire life history. And it was kind of like being with a psychiatrist, only he wasn't trying to actually solve anything. He was just gathering information on my life. And at the end of the 2 weeks, he says, Shiraz, you believe you're responsible for everyone in your life. And I said, no, I don't. And he said, I know you don't think you do, but from everything you've told me, you've created this belief that you have to be responsible for everyone. And it started when you were around 8 years old. And I thought about it and I said, okay, I know I'm a responsible guy. I'm always the designated driver. I make sure my friends get home safe, and it's all that kind of stuff. But I don't think I'm responsible for everyone. And then even if I am, what's that got to do with arthritis? There's no connection there. And he said, oh, no, you don't want to be responsible for everyone. I said, yeah. And if you're lying in bed in pain, You don't have to be responsible for anyone, and you don't have to feel guilty about it. If people see you struggling to get through your day, they're not going to ask you to take care of them. The arthritis isn't your problem. It's the solution to the problem you're not looking at.
Yeah. You know, and that makes so much sense because I'm in recovery 35 years. I haven't had a drink or a drug since 1986. And I talk to so many people because I coach, and I'm like, listen, you don't want to get out of the problem because that's all you know, and you're comfortable. And I tell people, if you want to be successful in life, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And sometimes that's saying, okay, I'm not going to play the victim role anymore. And I'm going to move. And I hate to curse on the show, but I tell all this, a lot of my veteran brothers and sisters, you got to move the fuck on. You know, you have to get out of the problem because they say the best way to, you know, get out of a hole. Number one is stop digging and then climb out, you know? So talk about that what was your thoughts when he said you're the problem? What was the reaction? What was that like?
I think my exact words were, well, that's messed up. Because it is like, whoops, why would I do so much damage to my body just to get out of being responsible? And yet, as I learned more about this, it wasn't actually even getting out of being responsible. It was getting out of the guilt when I couldn't be responsible for everyone. Because our minds prioritize the avoidance of emotional distress over physical circumstances. Our minds don't care about the physical. They only care about the emotional. So in order to avoid guilt, I created arthritis. My mind doesn't care how much pain I'm in. It's like I'm guilt-free now. I've got an excuse not to be guilty. And most chronic illnesses are avoidance of emotional distress. Or, on the other side, a source of a fix for love, for attention, right? So this is, and that's a tough pill for some people to swallow, but if we get taught that attention is love, which is what a lot of kids are taught when they're young, then you come up with solutions to get attention. And for some people, it's like, I'm going to create success and I'll get a lot of attention, therefore I'll get a lot of love. But other kids, when they're young, they get hurt, they fall down, and their parents give them all this attention. Are you okay? Are you fine? And then they realize, when I get hurt, when I am sick, when I'm in pain, I get attention, and attention is love. Therefore, let me do this so I can get my fix, because it's looking for the emotional, doesn't care about the physical.
And you know, and I'm guilty of those, except for the last couple of years that, you know, I was always looking for approval. And, you know, I tried to fix everything. I tried to fix everybody. And then eventually I came to the realization, you know, I love my wife, my bride, my everything. I'm not in charge of her happiness. Yep. I can try to make her happy, but I am not in charge of keeping her happy. Even with my kids, I'm not in charge of their happiness. I can't be. I'm not the creator, so I can't be in charge. And once you realize that, you know, and get out of that codependency, that you're trying to help and fix everybody else. And I tell everybody, if my cup is empty, I cannot pour out into anybody else. So I got to, you know, take care of myself first, and then I can take care of others. So did you start realizing that also, that in order for you to be able to take care of people, you got to take care of Shiraz first?
Actually, I went in the opposite direction, and not to the extreme that it's going to sound, but when he said that, it clicked in my mind. I said, so if I say I'm not responsible for anyone, then the arthritis should just go away, according to his logic. And he said, yeah, if you actually believe it deep down that you don't need to be responsible for anyone but you don't need the arthritis. So I said, fine, I'm not going to be responsible for anyone but me. And when I woke up the next morning, there was no pain, there was no inflammation. I had more mobility. I could even breathe better. So I'm freaking out because it's been 18 years of trying all these different solutions. And this guy says, stop being responsible, and my arthritis goes away overnight. Like, that shouldn't happen.
Okay, so the person that got to India, the Shiraz that got to India, is a different person than the Shiraz that left India. So Absolutely. What was it like when you got home? And because you're no longer thinking the same way, it's kind of like, that's why I tell everybody. So I wear this T-shirt that says, "Today I decide." So, and once you make a decision, that's when your life actually changes, because that's when you decide to do something. But when you came home and you're like, oh, I feel good, I'm walking around, I'm not in pain anymore. What were the people around you? What was there had to be like, what drugs are you taking? What did they do to you? You know, so what was that like when you came home?
Well, they were understandably shocked, because here I am, I'm suddenly walking normally. I was doing sort of like that old man shuffle with my back hunched over before I left, and now I'm standing up straight and walking normally. And they're just like, what the hell just happened to you? Right. So, but I was in this place of, I don't need to be responsible for anyone anymore. Now, that didn't put me in a selfish place of, I don't care about anyone, but it meant that if I help someone, it's out of choice, not out of obligation. And when you're caring for someone, or helping or doing whatever out of choice, it always feels light. It's actually energizing, because I get to do this. When you're doing it out of obligation, out of responsibility, it's always a burden. It feels heavy. And so I was living in this lightness now.
And, you know, that's something that really, I read and actually talked with Mr. Tony Robbins. Mm-hmm. And that was something that he talked about, is like, he told me that when you change your have to's to get to, your whole thought process in life changes. Like, yeah, I have to take out the garbage, but I get to take out the garbage from my own house, that I have my beautiful wife and my kids. So I change everything, my mindset, my lexicon, from I have to I get to. And like you said, it gives you so much freedom and joy, right?
Yep. And that's one of the things I talk about in a similar way, because it's like, I don't have to take care of my kids, but I love them, so I want to. And your terms, it's I get to. Right? When you start applying that to everything, your life changes. And you start to make different decisions. But what I found that's really interesting is, in the space of not needing to help people, I've actually been helping more people.
And I love that. And, you know, in business, we call that, either you have sales breath or you don't have sales breath, which means that if people know that you're really caring about them and not just worried about this paycheck, you're going to be way more successful, because people know you're just trying to help. And there is no ulterior motive. And I think that's when you become really successful, when you realize, I'm just trying to help people, and the money will follow, because you're creating change, and you're creating whatever you put out in the universe, it's going to come back to you. So did you notice that?
I do. I actually had a friend, she was talking about me once, and she said, the thing about Shiraz is that who he is who he is. There's not like a business Shiraz and a personal Shiraz. And she said, we were at dinner one time, and he had gotten into a conversation with this person, and he was doing his technique and changing that person's life over dinner. And he wasn't getting paid for it. It was just this him wanting to help that person. And I looked at her, and I was like, really? I did that? She goes, yeah, don't you remember? I'm like, no, because it was so normal for me that I didn't see it as a significant action. It was just conversation for me. But I didn't realize how the rest of the world is perceiving it, because this is just me being me.
Yeah, and like I tell everybody, and when we hang up, I'm going to ask for your information, because I'm going to send you stuff. But I also tell people I'm the same guy when the camera's on, when the camera's off. We ever get together, you're going to get a big hug. But that's the guy I am 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that's the guy I choose to be. Because
Mhm.
you know, you some people are one way when the camera's on, and you see him out on the street, and they're like, "Is that the same dude that I just seen talking about how much he loves his wife, how much he loves his kids, and then he treats people bad on the outside?" So I
Yeah.
think if you want to be successful, you have to be, and that word authentic gets thrown around so much, but I think it's true. You have to be authentic, or you're going to get found out, especially in today's world of social media.
Oh yes, yes, totally.
All right,
And
so
and
now a lot of
it's
people,
easier, right? It's easier to just be one person than to try to be multiple people.
and then if you don't lie, you don't have to remember all the lies that you've told, so it makes your life a little bit easier. But now, a lot of people that listen to this show are veterans and first responders, and a lot of us, including myself, deal with survivor's guilt.
Mhm.
Uh, we deal with moral injury and post traumatic stress.
Yes.
So, what would you say to the people that are, give us a little breakdown, a little TEDx talk, if you're talking to a group of people that are struggling with PTSD, um, moral injury, and any other mental health issue?
Well, the thing that popped out when you're talking with survivor's guilt, and with survivor's guilt, remember that your mind tries to avoid uh, negative emotions. The biggest ones it tries to avoid are guilt and shame. So when you're in guilt and you know you're in guilt, your mind is trying everything it can to create physical circumstances, try to get you out of the guilt or to try to alleviate the guilt by doing self-punishment. So if I'm being punished, I don't have to feel as guilty. And it can do that by taking away your money, making you sick, ruining relationships. So then you can feel that I'm doing penance for having survived or for having done something I felt I shouldn't have. And it's all to get you out of this emotional distress. The thing to remember is that every emotion is a choice. It may not feel like it, but we can always choose what emotions we're in. So if instead of being in guilt for being the one that survived, you go to gratitude that you were there to tell the story, to continue helping other people, to be a beacon in the world, then everything will start to shift in your life. But staying in guilt is the worst thing you can do for your life, for your body, for your relationships. And again, I know it doesn't feel like a choice, but once you really get it deep down that every emotion is a choice, you're going to start to choose the emotions you want. Here's the other thing that's really important is it can be hard to get out of it. Because have you read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Dr. Joe
Yep,
Dispenza? Okay.
yep. I love Joe. Joe is
Okay.
amazing.
So if your default emotion is guilt, then your cells actually create receptors for the chemicals that are associated with guilt. So that when you decide, I don't want to be guilty, and you try to go to being grateful, your cells aren't getting the guilt chemicals. They go into withdrawal. They send a signal to your brain saying, make this person feel guilty. You do something or hear something that makes you feel guilty, and then your cells get their fix, and your whole body goes, oh, thank God. Whew, we needed our fix. But meanwhile, you're in this place of, oh my God, now I'm back in guilt. So when you realize it's a physical addiction you're going through, then go for gratitude. Gratitude is one of the easiest ones to get out of because there's so many things to be grateful for. There's so many tools out there, gratitude journals, gratitude programs to get you out there. And stay in gratitude as long as you can, because eventually your cells will go into such withdrawal that they'll say, we're not getting guilt anymore. We're only getting gratitude. They'll change the receptors to receive gratitude. Now you're addicted to gratitude. And you get all the benefits of a life where there's always things to be grateful for.
Now, I'm a gratitude guy.
Yes.
And in this life hack, I got taught, it taught me somebody, my friend Patrick Mudge actually taught this to me. When I go to bed at night,
Mhm.
I wrap my arms around my wife, even though she's sleeping. I pray for her. I pray for her happiness. I pray for her health. Let her know that I love her and I appreciate her. Then I pray for my dog. Obviously, she's laying on next to me. But then I think of three things that happened during my day that I'm grateful for. And this episode is going to be one of them. So when I go to bed, I'm like, Lord, thank you that I got to speak with Shiraz today. Thank you that my wife cooked an amazing meal. Thank you that my daughter was so happy because I bought her flowers today and I touched her. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I can see something, because I lost 80% of my vision at one point, I say thank you. This is going to be an amazing day. No matter what challenges or what opportunities come, I'm going to accept them with gratitude. So I go to bed with gratitude and I wake up with gratitude. And if I wake up in the morning, in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I get back in bed and I just say, Lord, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing for me. So I'm always in gratitude. And I think if you're always in gratitude, you can't always be in gratitude. But if you go to bed grateful and you wake up grateful, your day's starting off on a lot better footing than if you just pick up your phone and you're watching Facebook and the news as soon as you get up, right?
Yep. And that's beautiful. I love that you do that. And it's also important because the science has shown that the emotion you go to bed in, to go to sleep in, is the emotion that echoes through your dreams and causes manifestation that later on. So that's great that you do that every night. I used to do five pieces of gratitude every morning. And when I was learning these techniques, it was okay every morning. I do it in the shower too. I just like be in the shower. I'm like, okay, let's go through the 5 things while I'm showering up. And it was an amazing exercise. What I eventually found out I was doing was I was starting to be this place of walking gratitude where I would, I'm driving along and I get to do the left turn, but there's no oncoming traffic. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Like the stuff I'm at the supermarket, thing I'm buying is on sale. Oh, thank you for that. And it was just thank you, thank you, thank you. So now that's happening throughout the day. And I was actually really amused because I was on the phone with one of my friends and I was running errands. And after we were just chatting away for like half an hour, and she said, like, what the hell is going on with you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, well, I've been hearing you say thank you, and I've been hearing you talk to people, and people are opening doors for you, and people are helping you out, and like there's all these thank yous going on. And I'm like, yeah, that's just my day. And she goes, but I've never seen it happen like in real time. I guess she was listening to it, but it was just this piece after piece after piece after piece. And I'm like, because when you look for it, it's like, when you want to buy a red Toyota, you see red Toyotas everywhere, right? So when you're constantly looking for gratitude, you're finding reasons to be grateful, and you're also pulling them into your world, right? This was really interesting. When COVID hit, I was online on Zoom with a bunch of people that were spiritual people, and they were all complaining about how everyone is angry and frustrated because of COVID. And they go to the grocery store and everyone's like pulling, like making sure they don't get too close to people, but it's in this, like, it wasn't in like, I'm trying to stay safe. It's like, get the hell away from me. And people are just frustrated and angry. And I had to get off the call because there's just so much negativity on that call. And I'm so used to being in gratitude. And then right after that, they were talking about going shopping. I went to go grab some groceries, and everyone was friendly, and there was thank yous. And it's like, well, they're pulling in what they are seeing in the world and sharing in it and commiserating with each other in that negativity. Whereas I'm just like, look at all, despite we're in the middle of COVID, there's still so much to be grateful for if you look for it.
All right. So you went there. So we're going to go there. You went there. We're going to go there. And Shiraz, brother, I just want to say thank you. I'm so humbled to be able to sit and chat with you today. I just wanted to say thank you so much. But, I read Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within like 20 years ago when it was on tape. And then I picked it up about 5 years ago. And then I started really listening to it. And he talks about how you can change the pathways of your brain using your RAS, your reticular activating system. Mm-hmm. And I love how, I learned what he taught, and then I went back to Think and Grow Rich. And then I was like, okay, well, who taught him and then I went back to Mr. Carnegie, and this is back, and I went back to like the 1900s. The brain hasn't really changed a whole lot since the 1900s. But one thing that Mr. Carnegie said, and I have it written down everywhere: your obsessions become your possessions.
Yeah.
So whatever you constantly think about, it's kind of like the Facebook algorithm. Whatever you constantly like, they're going to show you more of. And I think the brain is your Facebook algorithm or Instagram, whatever it is. So talk to us about how, what you think about is where you're going to be heading. Because even in a race car, they tell you to turn the wheel to where you want to go, not where you're actually going.
Yes.
So talk to us about the RAS, talking about manifestation, because this is one of my favorite topics. And people think it's woo-woo, but it actually works. And I'll tell you guys a story about manifestation, how it worked in my life. We'll talk about that later. So Shiraz, talk to us about the RAS, manifestation, and the brain.
Okay. So actually, let's go from the woo to the science. So quantum physics experiments have shown that woo is not woo, woo is science. So the two of the experiments that I absolutely love was one, for years they were trying to figure out, is light a wave or is light a particle? Because sometimes it shows up a wave, sometimes it shows up a particle. And they had an experiment set up where they were shining light through two slits. Like there was papers and there were slits in the papers, and the light would go through and then put a pattern on the wall. And on the wall for this particular experiment, it was particles. Light shows up as a particle. So then they're saying, well, okay, obviously light in this experiment, light is a particle. And then someone says, how do you know? So because the pattern. So, but what if there's waves, but they're just not getting through the slits and only the particles are getting slits? So maybe this experiment is just filtering out the waves. And they're like, oh, damn it. So they had a device that could detect waves, and they put that device before one of the slits to see if any waves were hitting before the slits and getting stopped. As soon as they put that device there, the pattern on the wall changed to waves. Now that device shouldn't interfere. It's only observing. It shouldn't cause any change in the experiment, but the pattern changed to waves. And then they finally realized when we look for a wave, we get a wave. When we look for a particle, we get a particle. So what we're expecting is affecting the experiment. So when they found this out, they did some more experiments. There's experiments they've done where a scientist works on the experiment and they get a specific result every time. And then they put another scientist in for the exact same experiment, and he gets a different result, because what each scientist is expecting mentally is affecting the outcome of the experiment at a quantum level. So they've proven that what we expect affects our world at a quantum level. And anything that happens at a quantum level shows up at a macro level in the real world as well. So if you're expecting people to ignore you, people will ignore you. If you're expecting your body to be in pain, you will be in pain. And it's not the conscious, because only 5%, less than 5% of a thought is conscious, it's 95% is unconscious. That's what the driver is. So it's up to you to take the conscious thoughts and push them down until they become unconscious thoughts, and are just constantly running. So one of the things I've constantly said to myself until it got pushed down is everything always works out for me. Now, it didn't used to, but every time something works out for me, I anchor that in. And I say, look, there's something else that worked out for me. And look, there's something else that worked out for me. And if something goes wrong, instead of saying, okay, there's evidence that it doesn't work out for me, I sort of dismiss it and go, well, that's okay, because it's going to work out eventually, because everything works out for me. And somehow it will always come out to a place where, oh, there, that's where it is. That works out for me. And so being in that state, that mantra, and I teach this to all my students, everything always works out for me. And then anchor the evidence when it happens. You'll see it happen to more and more and more until that just becomes your reality. It's fun, because it's fun watching how it starts to work out for you, because you don't have to worry about the how. The how just starts to show up. And just most recently, I booked a flight, and I booked first class so I could get my luggage first and get off the plane. But what I didn't realize is we were on one of those planes that was so small that even your carry-on has to go into the hold. And so I thought, okay, so now I'm going to get off. I'm gonna have to be with everyone and wait for my carry-on. And then we got off we landed. We're waiting for them to open the doors. Everyone's gathering their stuff, and then we get off, and they're starting to load the luggage. And as I'm walking by, the guy picks up my suitcase and puts it right next to me so I could just grab it as I'm walking by. I don't even have to stop. And I just kept going down the hall, and I just started giggling and anchored in again. See, everything always works out for me. And this is the thing. Make it a game. People are taking life way too seriously. And when you make it fun, when you laugh at how everything starts to work out for you, or how you set an intention and there it is, now you're putting the oxytocin, the dopamine, the adrenaline into your system, and getting your body addicted to those chemicals of happiness, of joy. And your life just starts to transform.
And and I love that. And I had a conversation with Mr. Ed Milet the week after I got hurt, and I was supposed to fly out on his jet to South Carolina. We were supposed to go to one of his talks, and I couldn't go because I couldn't fly because of the pressure. No. And I'm like, Ed, I'm so sorry. He's like, don't worry about it. He sent me a whole bunch of swag. He's like, we'll meet up later. But he said, you know what, Rich? And this changed my whole life. He said, nothing has ever happened to you. Everything has happened for you, and everything is a teachable moment. So it totally changed my life. Even the stuff I was dealing with depression, anxiety, PTS. Oh, now I think when I think of a memory, I'm like, that happened for me, so I can help somebody else that's going through that. So that kind of changed my mind. But I'm a child of God, and I believe if my God owns everything, and I'm doing the right thing, and I realize he owns everything, I own everything. So yes. I expect favor anywhere I go. I expect favor. If I'm driving in a parking lot, I'm like, all right, let's get the best parking spot. Almost every time it happens. If I walk in the store, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get the best sales day. I'm going to get treated great today. And it happens because you're expecting. And yes. when you expect your wife to cheat on you, guess what? She's probably going to cheat on you. But if you expect your wife to be faithful and to be loving and caring, you're going to get what you expect. And that all goes back to the RAS system in the brain, that whatever you look for, you're going to find, whether that's failure or success, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So now, how do you, when you talk to people, and like for me, this is a manifestation story. Forever, I wanted to go to Atlantis in the Bahamas. And I have it on my phone. I actually have a picture of it on my phone for 10 years. My wife called me last month. She's like, we're going on a cruise. And I'm like, where? She's like, we're going to go to the Bahamas. And I never mentioned it to Atlantis. She said, guess what? We're going to go to Atlantis. And I'm like, wow. But I've been on my vision board for 10 years. So I believe that it manifested itself in that. So what are your thoughts on, like I have on my lock screen, I have the beach house I'm going to buy. I actually have the boat that I'm going to own. And when I'm cleaning my house in the morning and I wipe down my kitchen, I'm like, Lord, thank you for the house I have, and thank you for the house that's coming. So talk about that. Is, your expectations are only as far as you can reach.
Yes. And you're doing it beautifully, because this is thank you for the house I have, thank you for the house that's coming. You're putting into this place of certainty that this is what's coming. A lot of times when people try to do vision boards, they're still in a place of lack, and it's not here, right? It's on my vision board. This is the house I want. I really hope I can get the house I want. They're not in that place of, now it's on the vision board. It's going to show up. So you have to really get that part of it. That it sounds weird, but I say stop being in hope, because there's no certainty in hope. You want to be in complete certainty. This is what's going to happen, right? One of the analogies I love to use is when Jesus talks about having the faith of a mustard seed. And I found a lot of people get it reversed in what he was actually talking about. Because I asked, well, what do you think he meant? She goes, you just need a little bit of faith. right? Just the faith of a mustard seed. I'm like, no, it's the opposite. Because a mustard seed, this tiny little seed, knows it's going to become a big, strong mustard plant. It has zero doubt about what's going to happen. As human beings, we're like mustard seeds, and like, I'm going to become a mustard plant. And then things start to get rough, and you're like, you know what? Orange tree. And then that doesn't start to work out, grapevine. But when you're in that place of certainty, this is what's going to happen. When you put stuff on your vision board and you say, once it's on the board, it's coming. I don't know. I don't control the when, I don't control the how, but I do control the what. Then you get to that place of certainty and things just start to show up. And being in that energy of gratitude, which is what you're doing, which I love. Thank you for like being the model for this. That speeds up the process.
Okay. So then, and I love, I'm a guy, I've read almost every. I was just talking to a friend of mine, my friend Janaid. I've studied the Quran. I've studied the Bible, the Book of Mormon. I'm addicted to knowledge. But one part of the Bible that I love, that it says, faith without works is dead. So I can believe all I want that I'm going to have a house and a boat, but if I'm sitting home playing Madden 24 hours a day, smoking weed all day, it's not going to happen. I can have that faith it's going to happen, but if I don't, like Ed Milet's new book, talks about, you got to put in the reps and you got to do one more. You got to put in the reps. So talk about not only having the faith, but also putting in the work.
So one of the stories that runs around the world is you have to work hard to succeed. And I actually counter that. I say, you don't have to work hard to succeed. You have to be willing to work hard to succeed. And in that place of willingness to work hard to succeed, in my life, there are days where I will work from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Yeah. I am willing to put in that work. But there are also days where I'm sitting on my ass all day and I look at my phone and there's a deposits dropping in my bank account. So I'm willing to have money just show up. And that's the sweet spot, because in that place of I'm willing to do the work, when you do the work, it's what is the inspired action? That's the phrase they use. So it doesn't feel like work. It becomes the thing that energizes you when you do it. And so you actually start to take more action, but not from a place of this tires me out. It's like, oh my God. And we go back to, I get to do this. I get to coach these people. I get to change lives. And you do more and more action. Now, the cool thing is, once you set that intention of this is the thing I want to come out, when you're taking action, the universe, God is working in the background to help bring that in. So it can show up as a result of your action, or it can shortcut and just show up in your life really quickly. The thing you need to realize is, if you're only looking for the miracles, you get nothing. If you're willing to go through the journey, miracles drop in your life along the way all the time.
Okay, now let me, because like I said, I'm so grateful, Shiraz, that we're actually getting to hang out and you're taking the time. I just finished reading the book by Patrick Bet-David, Pick Your Enemies Wisely. And something he talks about is, you can have a goal, but if there's not emotion tied to that goal, when the times get hard, you're going to quit. Because I had a friend a while ago, he made a lot of money, but he's like, I want to buy a Lambo. I want to buy a Lambo. So I picked him up in my car, and I'm like, he's like, where are we going? I'm like, going to the Lambo dealership. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I want you to take that car out. I want you to take it for a test ride. I want you to smell the leather. I want you to feel the wind in your hair. So now when you get home and think, I want a Lambo, now you know how it feels to be in that car. Because like, I know that when I go to Atlantis, I'm going to be walking in some of the houses that are on the beaches. I'm going to be checking out some of the boats. So I'm getting the smell of the leather, the smell of the ocean. So when I have my goals, I'm like, okay, now there's an emotional attachment to it. So talk about that, is having emotional attachment to your goals and not just taking a picture of something and putting it on your phone.
Well, It's one of the laws of manifestation. It's not just thought and it's not just emotion. It's the combination of both that creates manifestation. And if you can't get into that resonance of both, if you can't feel the experience ahead of the experience, you don't create the experience, which is like great that you had him in the Lambo so we could actually get more into the feeling of this, what it's like to have. So if you want to be a great speaker, you've got to imagine yourself on stage and how it feels to be confident, to feel the love of the audience, to give that great presentation, so that in your brain, it's already happening. It's just who you are. One of the brain hacks I've found is we talk about getting into the feeling of it already being done. What I found to really refine that is if you're imagining the situation from a first person point of view, along with the feelings, your brain thinks it's already happening now, because your brain doesn't care if it's happening physically or just in your mind. It treats everything as real as long as it shows up as though it's real in your mind. So if you're thinking you want to be a great speaker and you start thinking, okay, I'm up on stage, but then after a couple seconds, you switch that over to I'm traveling first class on a plane because I'm a great speaker. But then you switch that a few seconds later to I'm living in this great house because I'm an amazing speaker. Those are too quick. Your brain gets, well, that's not actually happening. It's these are choppy. But if you can hold that picture for like 30 seconds or more of being up on stage, actually start doing the talk either out loud or in your mind and being in those feelings, now your brain thinks it's actually happening. Now your brain thinks this is who I am. And the more often you do that, the more it just becomes matter of fact to your brain. It pushes it into the subconscious, and then that starts to be who you are and starts to show up in your life. And going back to breaking the habit of being yourself, this isn't just about getting success. This is also about changing your physical body, because they did the experiments where people were imagining doing those finger lifts to strengthen the finger, and some people were actually doing the lifts. And the people that were doing the finger lifts with the weights, they showed like a 48% increase in muscle mass in the fingers after the experiment was done. But the people that were just imagining it showed like a 23%, I think, increase in muscle mass. They weren't actually even moving their fingers. They were just imagining doing it. But the change physically happened. So I did this thing last year, which I just thought, let's see it. Let's put it to the test if this actually works. And it was because I'd gone to Cancun with a bunch of people, and we got the pictures back and they were being posted on Facebook. And I saw how big my stomach had gotten. And I was like, oh my God, when did I get so fat? And so I said, okay, I've got to lose this weight. But I also knew I'm not in that mindset that it's that big a priority for me to lose the weight that I'm going to start doing all the exercises. But I do go for a walk every morning and every evening. So on that walk, I imagined myself in the gym. I was imagining it from a first person point of view, pushing the weights, doing the exercises. I found my breathing would match the exercises that I'm doing it. And so for this 40-minute walk, I'm doing a 40-minute workout mentally in real time from a first person point of view. After 6 weeks, I had gone down a notch in my belt. I'd actually lost weight. And then I started craving working out. And this is the crazy thing is when way back when I used to work out, I always worked out in the evenings. But because I kept doing this physical workout on my morning walk, I began craving to work out in the morning. And then I just started working out because that's what I'd been doing for 6 weeks. My brain's like, well, this is what we do. And so I started putting on muscle mass. I went down another notch in my belt. And like half of that was not from the physical. It was just from the mental. It's crazy, but it works. It's not really crazy. We think it's crazy, but it works.
Yeah, and like for me, my hack I use is I love listening to audiobooks, but I won't allow myself to listen to an audiobook unless I'm walking somewhere, unless I'm doing my workouts. And I just downloaded a new book today about the Wolf of Wall Street. So I can't wait to go listen to this. I'm like, so I'm going to exercise just so I get to listen to this audiobook. And so that's one of the hacks that I use. But, let's talk for the last couple of minutes. My brother, James Clear, wrote an amazing book, Atomic Habits. He's got a brand new app out. If you guys have the chance, check it out. But I believe that if you want to know where you're going to be 5 years from today, it's the habits that you're doing in this moment. Like
Yes.
I'm talking to Shiraz. I'm not worried about what I have to do 5 minutes. I'm not worried about dinner. I'm not worried about lunch. I'm just all in at this moment right now. And like James even said that up to 60% of our daily life is just habits.
Yes.
So talk to us. You come back from Africa, you're feeling healthy again. But you had, I'm sure you changed some of your habits because you couldn't be like even the Bible says new wine doesn't work in an old wineskin.
Mhm.
So talk to us about the habits that you started doing that kept you, because we can like I can get sober and not drink today, but
Mhm.
if I don't have the habits of a non-drinker, I'm going to get drunk tomorrow. So talk about habits and how important they are.
The biggest habit change for me when I got back was the desire to pursue self development and learn about what just happened to me. So I was looking into manifestation. I was looking to how the mind worked. I was looking to all these different modalities. And in that, just discovering this entire world that we now live in that I didn't know existed. And by doing those exercises, I started to see changes in how I showed up, how I was with other people, my understanding of things happening. Like when I learned that a person in a place of high self-esteem doesn't put down people around them, it really just changed my world. Because if someone was insulting me, instead of thinking, oh my God, why are they insulting me? Or how do I get them to stop? My brain went to, oh my God, who hurt you? Because a person in high self-esteem doesn't do this. Someone really hurt you and you feel small. So you're doing this to make yourself feel bigger. And it like when you're looking at the world and looking at people like that way, it's so much different. You don't get as upset, you don't get angry, you stay happier. So that was the big thing for me. And like you, I'm constantly reading audiobooks, I'm constantly exploring, I'm having conversations with amazing people like you, because that's the world I want to live in. That's the way I want to see my life going. And it is those daily habits that affect everything. I actually developed I worked with Maury Zelkovich. He's a brain entrainment engineer.
Yeah.
And we created these audios that I use for people in my program, and I use them myself, that uh, I put them on first thing in the morning and last thing at night so that I go into that mindset space. And it programs me for happiness, for success, for wealth. And it's just amazing doing that. And just automatically when I wake up, I reach over, put the headset on. That's my habit. Like I don't even think about it. And I watch everything start to improve. So oftentimes, like I tell people, really start paying attention to what comes out of your mouth, because everything that comes out of your mouth is what's running in your subconscious. And even if you think you're using a cliche, like if you say, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, that's running in your subconscious, right? Nice guys finish last. There's all these phrases that people say that you're manifesting into your life. I would rather go with like the world is my oyster because I keep finding pearls. Like that's a really cool way. And watch other people around you. Listen to the words and phrases they use. That's telling you what they're manifesting. Change the habit of what you say, and it will go internally and become who you are.
And that's why I love the book. It's called Relentless by Mr. Tim S. Grover. He coached Michael Jordan. He coached Kobe Bryant, and he called them cleaners, because they knew that Michael knew that I'm going to win. There's no doubt about it. When I step on the floor, that I'm the greatest player on that floor. And once you get into that mindset, like before I go to bed at night, my wife gets ready, and I actually play video games. And I played Madden and I play NBA 2K. And I make sure that I have like 30 points, 15 rebounds, 3 steals. I make sure I dominate that game. So when I go to bed at night, my mind is thinking, you're a cleaner.
Yeah.
You're successful. Even though it's a video game, it's still setting my mind up for success for the next day. and I think I'm a cleaner. I'm positive. I'm crushing it. So, sometimes you have to use different modalities, like the word you use.
Mhm.
I'm not as intelligent, but I love the word modality. Whatever gets you over that hump, that's the way you should. And even Kobe and Michael were that way. They thought, I'm the greatest. When I step on the floor, there's nobody better than me. And Michael used to walk through the visitors' locker room telling people, hey, you guys might as well go home because I'm going to dominate. So, but they have that mindset. And I love
Yes.
that Mamba mentality. So, talk about having the mindset of you already know you're going to go into a situation and you're going to succeed. And like you said, if you're already thinking you're to succeed and there's no doubt. And you're just going to be like, yeah, I got this, you know?
Yeah. There was an experiment done a while back with waiters and waitresses, and they said before you go out and work with someone, get into the mindset that it's going to be an amazing experience, and also bless the people you're about to work with. Like, no matter what this experience is with, about to have you. No matter what the experience I'm about to have with you turns out, I wish wonderful things for you and your family. And they said, you don't have to behave any differently. You just want to do this setup that this is what's going to happen before you have the interaction. Tips went up between two and three times over the next month for every person that was in that experiment. Like, it was just setting that intention. This is what life's going to be like. And of course, they got to be happier. And it's amazing because I did this. I had a similar experience with one of my students. We were doing something called active listening. And that's where you're actively listening to what the person says, asking questions and making it all about them, but not just to get them to talk, to actually listen and absorb what's going on with that person. And he worked at a golf and country club, and he did this during the summer for 30 days. And after 30 days, I came in and I said, what happened? And he goes, it was not what I expected. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, so I was doing the active listening, and it's really hard not to talk because we're programmed to want to talk to ourselves. When we're listening to someone else, we're actually not often listening, where they say something and now we're like, oh, I know what I want to say now. And now you're just waiting for them to finish so you can say what you want to say. But he was doing this thing, and he said, when I'm listening to them, I realized, because I always had this story about who they were, that they were these rich, snotty people that came to this country club so they can spend all their money. And when I'm listening to them, I realized they're just people. They're people with similar problems, but they just happen to have more money. And the money isn't what makes them different, because they're like, they have ambitions and they have complaints, and there's stuff going on with families. And so I really have a better understanding and a better acceptance and liking for rich people, which was cool because that now allowed him to become rich. Because if you don't like rich people, you try to keep away from the thing you don't like. So that meant his income could go up. And the other thing is, he stated, and my tips at least tripled with every person I was working with. And I'm like, you're making people feel heard and understood. They will tip you for that. They will tip you well for that. And in life, whether it's to get paid or just to make someone feel heard and understood, people love that. Maya Angelou, they won't remember what you said, what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
So getting into this place of intention, when your intention is to make someone feel better than when they first started talking to you, that beginning of that interaction, that's going to echo out into everything you do and pull the impact, the rewards, the everything for you. So if there's any intention I would say to be locked into, is I'm going to make every person I meet better for having met me, and see what impact that has in your life.
And that's something that I believe, and like you, even I think me and you are here on that in order to have the blessings, you need to be a blessing to other people.
Yes.
And I think, it automatically, the world just like, okay, you're whatever you're putting out into the world, you're going to get tenfold. But okay, so now this is a teaching podcast. So the last couple of minutes, if there's somebody that's, a veteran or entrepreneur starting a brand new business, what would be your 3 top pieces of advice to get into the mindset for success?
Number 1, get a coach. Absolutely get a coach. People keep thinking I got to do it on my own. I've got to get to a certain level of business before I can have a coach. No, the sooner you get a coach, the faster you are going to progress. The sooner you're going to get a coach, the faster you're going to get out of the situation that you're in if you're in this negative situation. So absolutely, number 1, get that coach. Number 2, go in with a child mindset. You may think you know a lot, but thinking you know a lot, and especially thinking you know more than the person you're talking to, stops learning from happening. A child will absorb everything. And even for things you know, ask questions as though you've never learned it before. Because what happens is if you immediately agree or disagree with something, no learning occurs. Your mind puts it into a box and locks it away, right? So like the sky is blue. Yeah, of course I know the sky is blue. No, why is the sky blue? What's going on that causes the sky to be blue, and why isn't it orange all the time? Go into that learning mindset with everything and see what starts to unlock things that you may have thought were true and real. And you may realize, oh, wait, but what about when this happens? I never thought of that before because I never thought to think from that capacity. And I'm asking these questions all the time now, and it's just bringing more and more stuff up. And number 3, this is a hard one for people. Be willing to let go of anyone or anything holding you back or keeping you stuck.
Well, can you say that for the people in the back? Because and I always talk about it, it's called addition by subtraction. Sometimes if you want to have healthy cells, you got to cut the cancer out. So repeat that. Repeat what you just said.
Be willing to let go of anyone or anything holding you back and keeping you stuck. And this could be family, right? This could be that one game you won that was the pinnacle of your success that you're still holding on to, and you won't let yourself go further because you don't want to. This is actually happened with one of the people I was working with. He had created a business perfectly, and he didn't want to create a new business, not consciously, but he wouldn't create a business that surpassed that because he thought that would invalidate and the old business that he had done so perfectly. And he wanted to keep that there as like this trophy and this prize of his life. And I'm like, make a bigger prize. Let it go. Just let it go. It's done. Celebrate it. Now let it go.
Okay, so now one thing I said to you before we even came on, I think your book needs to have a second part, have a workbook to where people can actually take actionable steps. So talk about your book, because as soon as Angel reached out to me, and I'm like, all right, I got to get this book because I want to know what Shiraz is talking about. So talk about your book, how it came about, and the results you're seeing when people purchase your book and your coaching.
So the book, how it came about was actually quite amusing. I had gone on an Abraham Hicks cruise, and actually amazing cruise. The energy on that cruise is fantastic. It becomes this magical place where if you want something, it just shows up. They call it the ship of yes when you're there with Abraham Hicks. And in the auditorium, there were 1,100 of us there to see Abraham. And of course, only like a dozen could get up and actually work with Abraham. But I was looking around, and my business was small then. I could get maybe 20 people out for an event. And it was basically me thinking, would anyone actually come up in big numbers for this kind of work? And here's 1,100 people that paid for the cruise and everything to be there. And I did the math, and I'm like, we all paid $400 for this. That's $440,000 that she's getting for this. And I'm like, okay, how do I get to this level? And then from there, I went to a workshop, and they said, a book will get you there. A book will increase your authority. It's going to make you more noticeable. It'll get you into speaking gigs that you didn't get to. So I said, okay, I'll write a book. So my original plan for writing the book was just to write a book to increase my authority. But in the writing of the book, all this information just started, like we call it downloading, that I'm like, oh my God. And I started talking about the genres and the archetypes, and the whole book is made in the metaphor of stories. Even the chapters are like your backstory, your supporting characters, so that it's easily understandable by anyone because everyone knows stories. And what came out of the book was people are using the language of the book, which didn't exist before the book. Like my clients are saying, I know I'm in drama genre. Thank God I'm out of the horror genre, but I want to get to action adventure. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a thing now. And I just love how it's happening. But I've also found out that while the book was supposed to be something that would lead people to working with me, it's actually changing lives. Someone called me up and he said, I got my son to read your book. He had been in depression for 3 years. He came out of it after reading the book. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize that's the impact it's going to have. But I love it. I absolutely love it.
And your book has changed me personally, because before I read it, I'm like, you know, I'm a diabetic. But before I read your book, I thought, you know, I'm a diabetic and I'm going to die a diabetic. But now I think once I read the book, I'm like, okay, I have diabetes. It doesn't have me. So I switched the whole framework up. So just because I read your book, it's starting to get me even more healthy. So, and I put it into work. But now when you said it, you know, the word author comes from the word authority, short for the word authority. So once you put a book out, like my second book now it's out for pre-order now. And it's the back cover is actually written by Mr. John Lee Dumas, the #1 entrepreneur in the world for podcasting. But who would ever thought a 9th grader would write? Now it's going to be a 2-time bestseller. So like you said, once you write a book, and I think everybody has a book in them, you become an authority. And I love, you know, that you are an authority, and thank you for helping me and possibly saving my life. So I just want to say, Shiraz, thank you personally. So now, how do we get the book? How do we get coaching? Because a lot of people are like, you know what? I don't have time to read. I just want to hire a coach and have to be coached. So how do we hire you as a coach or get the book or both?
So first of all, I would say a big thanks to you, because like that kind of a story about the book from someone who's read so many books and does so much work, like that is like the biggest kind of praise I could ever get, and I'm just so grateful for that. Yeah, like I'm just so touched right now, because like when you said you've read how many thousands of books?
I think since when I was 5 years old, my mother was a nurse, so I would go into the bathtub and read anatomy, physiology, and I've been reading books, and normally I have like 18 books going at one time. So I think I'm up to like 6,000, but now I added audio books to it, so now I don't even know how many. But I'm addicted to knowledge. I went from being addicted to dope to being addicted to knowledge. So I just love to read, and I'd rather read than watch TV.
I love this because we're so similar. I have memories of my parents coming downstairs when I was a kid, and I'm sitting on the kitchen floor with like dry cereal in a bowl that I'm using as a snack, and I'm reading, and they're like, "Did you not go to sleep?" I'm like, "It's a good book." I'm like, I'm just reading.
Yeah. And what I like about books is, because I grew up as an abused child, if I read a book about India or Africa, I can transport myself into that. So I was never stuck where I was at. And that's why when I'm reading a book, like when I read your book, I put myself into your mind, into your body, and I experience those things. And so for me, that's why I said the book. Once I realized, okay, Rich, you know, Shiraz says this thing, you have diabetes, but it doesn't have you. It was a total game changer.
Nice. Yeah, I have that same feeling, because you know that feeling when you close the book and you feel the world come back into focus because now you've just exited the world you were in. Like that's such a cool feeling that, I was gone for a while.
Yeah. But
So yeah.
when you do close the book, if you don't put into action what you read, then it's like watching a movie. You're like, yeah, the movie's over. I'm not going to think about it. So now, even if I watch a movie, I'm looking for the life lessons in that movie that I can take and use in my life. So your book is an actual actionable book. And now, if you're going to write part 2 and you're going to have a workbook, it's going to be friggin' amazing.
Okay. Well, because of this conversation, the workbook is now going to be in the works.
So how do we find a book, and how do we find? And obviously, I followed you on every single social media channel. So how do we find you? How do we support your mission? Get the book and get the coaching.
The easiest way to find me is to go to energeticmagic.com. And that's the name of my company and the name of what I call what I do as a modality. And the book, you can find it on the site, but you can also just go to Amazon and look for How to Rewrite Reality. That's the name of the book, and it's by Shiraz. There's no last name. I don't use a last name as an author, and oftentimes when I get up to speak, because people always butcher my last name, so I'm just like, instead of saying it wrong, let's just not say it. Makes it easy.
Yeah. And guys, make sure, because I'm following him on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm following everywhere, and he's got some amazing content. Make sure you pick up this book, guys. And I wanted to say the reason I wear this shirt every day is because, I got like 10 of them. But, something that Joel Osteen told me, you can either be a victor or you could be the victim. And it's your choice. And the 3 most powerful words in the English language are, today I decide. So, guys, if you want to change your reality, make sure you get in touch with Shiraz. Make sure you pick up his books. And if you're looking to really change and you want somebody to keep your feet to the fire, definitely reach out to Shiraz for personal coaching.
I'd like to do one other level that most people don't know about is there's the victim level, there's the victor level, but then there's the vehicle level. And the vehicle level is when you let go of all ego and just let God work through you to create amazing things.
I'm going to add that to the ending of every show now, because I absolutely love that. So, Angel Tucci, thank you so much for putting us together. Shiraz, my friend, I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and hopefully we can build a generational relationship from this point forward.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me here, Richard.
I love it. And guys, so like I said, make sure you pick up the book. Make sure you follow them everywhere. My book just dropped. So if you want to learn how to have a podcast like this, the book is now available. We only have 100 copies that are personally signed by me. So if you want a copy, let me know. And if you're a business owner and you buy the book for $30, you're going to get a $950 value. You're going to be a guest on this show and have your business promoted to over 100,000 people for $30. So you can't lose with that. So if you want the book, just check it out. Shiraz, my brother, have an amazing weekend. Keep kicking butt.
Thank you, Richard. And I want a book. Thanks again.
All right, I'll send you the info. And guys, remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have an amazing week and enjoy this spring weather.